And so your accuracy on the ground without any help from aiding or terrestrial sources like Geonet is, 3 feet, 6 feet, 10 feet, anywhere from a meter to 3 meters is the best you can do, but you can often find yourself with 10, 20 meters of error, which is maybe okay and basic navigation, but it's not good enough for things that want to control systems based on GPS, like fly a drone tightly, or automate mowing your lawn, or have a car that can sort of self-drive. That signal is just not reliable enough. So to solve that problem, you need what's called a reference network, which is what we in Geonet vernacular call a satellite miner. You need a nearby satellite miner that is fixed in its position, can observe those signals and sort out all that distortion. And then the car, the drone, your phone can have a very accurate, very quick to converge, meaning very quick to get that position solution that can be, in good conditions, 1 centimeter in accuracy. So you've gone from knowing where you are to within 10 feet to sub-inch. And so that's the amazing thing that Geonet provides.
Awesome. Well, Mike, thank you so much for joining me today. Super excited to be connected. The founder of Geonet. Welcome.
Thank you, Logan. It's great to be on your show.
Awesome. Well, I think we were talking a little bit earlier. I am very excited about what you guys are doing. I think more broadly, what the decentralized physical infrastructure network is doing to me is one of the more interesting spaces within all of crypto. And more so because the token is not actually the product. It helps facilitate enabling a product. And I think what you're doing at Geonet is just that. So maybe before diving into Geonet and what you're doing from the product and application side, just bringing people up to speed a little bit with your background, Mike, and how you got to this point today.
Yeah, so my background is really in positioning and localization and navigation. So I've spent my whole career working on the problem of figuring out where you are or where things are and where they're going, using technologies like satellite navigation and sensor technology like inertial measurement units, cameras, LiDARs, all focused on this problem of positioning and self-localization.
Okay, awesome. And I guess how did that kind of background lead into what Geonet is today? And how did you, I guess, get involved in this whole Wild West of the crypto world?
Yeah, so I started a company out of college called Crossbow Technology, which was one of the first companies to sort of build low-cost sensor fusion systems combining GPS and MEMS IMUs and getting them into applications like drones and autonomy. And that company developed and grew and was sold very successfully to a couple different. We split the company into a sort of a defense piece and a commercial piece. Sold the commercial piece to a high volume manufacturer, and through that effort, I started to get also involved in automotive and learned that hey, automotive and ADAS systems and autonomy would really like to have much better position accuracy than standard GPS, and so we needed to dream up a way to do next generation GPS, and that turned to a technology called RTK, which has been used in civil survey and construction and farming for a long time, and said, how can we make this a mass market technology? And to do that, you need a ton of base stations. And a base station is a device that collects the same satellite signals that, say, your GPS does, but then processes those and relays those back to the vehicle so the vehicle can get a much more accurate position. I know it's a lot to sort of think about, but just think about it as trying to build infrastructure on the ground to enable a very accurate GPS signal for things like cars, phones, drones, whatever you may be. But you need infrastructure to do that. And we looked at, hey, could we build this infrastructure in a traditional Web 2 way, go to cell phone tower companies like American Tower, Crown Castle, go to self-storage companies. And we realized it's super horribly expensive to do this. We can talk about why later, but then we saw Helium and we saw what they were doing with the IoT network and realized that this type of principle, and this was before it was called Deepin, could be applied to the problem that we have very, very elegantly in a very elegant way. And that really led us to begin Geonet. We partnered up, myself and another Web 2 guy that's been in the autonomy and navigation space his whole career, partnered up with a blockchain expert who's been in the Ethereum ecosystem and actually even predating that, built first terahash Bitcoin ASIC. We got together and we started Geodnet.
Amazing. Well, maybe you talk about, I think you briefly touched upon it, some of the limitations of the current satellite networks and why, I guess, you need more accurate measurements than what currently exists today in the world.
Yeah, so I mean, we all benefit every day from the GPS system, and it's actually more technically referred to as GNSS because GPS is actually the US satellites, but there are also Russian ones, GLONASS, there are European ones, Galileo, and there's Beidou, which is the Chinese ones. And we actually all openly, those all transmit publicly open signals that anyone can decode and use to determine position. So anyone, it's kind of a decentralized system in itself. Anyone can read those signals, build a chip for it, known as a GPS chip, and get position. But the problem is those satellites are a long, long ways from Earth. And as that signal goes from the satellite to Earth, they sort of ping and say, hello, here I am. And that signal travels to the Earth and it gets distorted. And it gets distorted in particular through the atmosphere due to the activity of the sun. And it sounds crazy, but it's true. It gets all messed up. And so your accuracy on the ground without any help from aiding or terrestrial sources like Geonet is, 3 feet, 6 feet, 10 feet, anywhere from a meter to 3 meters is the best you can do. But you can often find yourself with 10, 20 meters of error, which is maybe okay and basic navigation, but it's not good enough for things that want to control systems based on GPS, like, fly a drone tightly or automate mowing your lawn or have a car that can sort of self-drive. That signal is just not reliable enough. So to solve that problem, you need what's called a reference network, which is what we in Geonet vernacular call a satellite miner. You need a nearby satellite miner that is fixed in its position, can observe those signals and sort out all that distortion. And then the car, the drone, your phone can have a very accurate, very quick to converge, meaning very quick to get that position solution that can be, in good conditions, 1 centimeter in accuracy. So you've gone from knowing where you are to within 10 feet to sub-inch. And so that's the amazing thing that Geonet provides.
That is pretty remarkable. Going from a couple meters to centimeters. That's a big leap.
It is a big leap. And the Geonet network can provide additional utility to help you know that that position being asserted by the device is actually a truthful position. So there's utility also in it in fraud detection and in what we call proof of location. So we're involved in both making very high accuracy available to customers and also ways for customers to validate that a location that's been asserted is true and valid.
So I guess we can take this probably conversation a couple ways. I ultimately love the product focus, and ultimately going from a couple meters to centimeters is obviously a dramatic improvement. Who do you think would ultimately be the biggest customers of this? I think you mentioned autonomous vehicles, drones, and how are they ultimately going to partner with the Geonet of the world?
Yeah, so it's the one of the cool things about the GNSS and GPS field is standards are very strong. So there's existing standards on how to do this, and we comply to those standards, which makes the adoption easy. Now you can think about 2 big buckets of marketplaces. One bucket of markets is things that have already been doing RTK, and there's a lot of equipment in the world already that supports these standards. It's not consumer stuff, it's enterprise stuff. It's things like drones, it's things like civil survey equipment. You see the land surveyors out working on the road, construction equipment, farming equipment. These guys have been using RTK for a long time. It's been expensive, but they need it for their job. And so our value proposition to those customers is to provide a better coverage and lower cost service. And that's working very well. And both small and large businesses alike in those fields are adopting Geonet to, again, get better coverage and lower cost correction services. And we've had customers in agriculture sign up. We've had customers in drone survey sign up. We've had customers in drone delivery and in traditional, civil survey. We actually have a lot of surveyors. Surveying is kind of a business in itself. You can call a surveyor to come out to your house and make measurements and submit those to the city. We have a lot of surveyors who are both using the service and are also miners who actually run satellite miners because they like the utility of knowing that they can count on their station. They're kind of in control of their destiny when they use the Geonet network. They know where the stations are, they've deployed them, and then they can go out and do their daily work. So that's the traditional marketplace, and it's pretty big. Market reports show that market, the traditional RTK market, being anywhere from 3 billion to 20 billion, depending on which market research report you believe. And some of those reports are freely downloadable as well. And we have a couple, I think, listed on our website and so forth that you can get at. So it's a big market. We're doing extremely well in that. The adoption of people who find out and try Geonet, who've been doing RTK before, they quickly realize that the service works just as good as anything they've done in the past. It saves them time and money, and so they adopt it. That's one area. The second area is all the new super cool things. And I would put automotive ADAS systems in that bucket, although that has matured a bit and it's kind of in between. This has kind of become pretty well accepted technology for automotive, and it's either in vehicles today. There are a number of production vehicles already using correction services, and then there's a whole lot more over the next 5 years that will come online. The automotive market just takes a bit of time. And then there are new things like consumer robots. So we're very active in the smart mower category. So these are outdoor robots like a Roomba, but they will map and mow your yard. And you'll see that we have and now a number of partners in this space. One will be launching a full tilt consumer retail Amazon, buy it on Amazon model just here in the next week or two. And we're very excited to be supporting that mower marketplace. Believe it or not, there are 9.6 million mowers sold in the US alone every year. So, and I think everybody can appreciate the idea that having a robot do that in a green way is a lot more fun than going out there and pushing a gas-powered mower around day after day.
I would definitely sign up for that service.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the kind of new things. There's augmented reality. So if you're trying to get on your phone and look at a Pokemon Go, getting that tight position registration of the phone makes that experience better, because you want everyone who goes, to a place and looks at that to see the same thing in the same way and be able to tightly connect the digital world with the physical world in a tight way. You need accurate position and orientation registration to do that. So those are the new things that something like Geonet with this low cost, high density of coverage can enable that in the past hasn't really been practical to do.
Okay, excellent, perfect. I think broadly speaking, now I hope the guests kind of have a little bit more understanding of what Geonet does in the product side. I think maybe diving in a little bit deeper, because there's a couple components that actually are required to make the network work. And you've mentioned the miners a couple times. Can
Yes.
you dive into what a miner actually is in the grand context of the entirety of the network?
Yeah, so the mining community is super critical for Geonet. It is the fundamental infrastructure nodes that are necessary to create this high accuracy alternative to basic GPS. And what that is, it's a small white disk that you install on your roof and connect up to your internet. That white disk is an antenna. Now, it doesn't transmit anything. So this is the first thing to understand, is it doesn't radiate any signals. It's really a sensor. It's listening to all the satellite signals and observing them, and then putting that data onto the internet. So that process of kind of almost scraping the sky, if you will, for the satellite signals is what the satellite mining process is. And we need ideally one super high quality installation per 20 kilometer hex, and that would achieve absolutely perfect coverage. And so we design a tokenomics system around creating incentives to get one super good quality station per hex, and we can talk about that more. But once that station's installed, you start to earn GOD tokens. And that's the fundamental mechanism. And those rewards are distributed based upon the quality of the data, the online time, the number of satellites that are seen, the multipath, the positional stability, all the factors that our customers care about are input into a formula that directly determines the rewards.
So this goes back to, I think, what you were mentioning earlier with ultimately the broadband, or being able to either get licensing, be able to deploy these minor locations around the world was just going to be prohibitively expensive, in the tunes of hundreds of millions or billions, to really get the global coverage that you need by tapping into kind of the blockchain aspect, being able to reward early network participant with geo tokens to contribute to this network with these miners. That really reduces the cost of what you have to take on personally, and also rewards the early adopters by contributing to the system.
Yes, that's exactly right. And it's kind of the deepen model is so powerful. It's kind of unbelievable, really. If you do it in a traditional way, you need to rent space, you need to pull internet, you need to roll construction equipment out to a site, get permits, and do all this stuff. I think we have in our mind that that's a minimum of $5,000 per setup, but it's probably closer to 10 to 20. We worked before we started Geonet. We worked with Crown Castle, American Tower to get quotes, and it's also cell towers are not a great location to install a very sensitive device that's trying to listen to radio signals, when at the same time on that cell tower you have things that are blasting radio signals in pretty close proximity to frequency band at very high power. So it's really not an ideal location. But we also looked at like self-storage locations, and there again, you need permits. They want you to pull your own internet. They want drawings for every single site installation. The cost and the time to do that is tremendous. So with Deepin, you're able to use a coordination through the blockchain to reduce those costs. And not only are there costs involved in setting up these stations if you do it the traditional way, just paying people all over the world, just the payment rails of crypto itself is also a huge value add. So in every way imaginable, Deepin simplifies and coordinates this process. An intelligently designed tokenomics system around Deepin will makes this really a much more tractable problem to get done in a relatively short period of time, and in an economic model that really supports the entire ecosystem of applications.
Yeah, it is rather remarkable. I think just kind of personally been diving very deep into the category as a whole of when you get the incentives correct, how powerful that flywheel can actually be. And I think you mentioned kind of looking to Helium in the early days and seeing some of their earlier traction in terms of what they got people to do in the real world. Can you
Right.
kind of share with the listeners just how you kind of conceptualize seeing what Helium was doing and being like, hey, maybe we can model something off similar to that and apply it to what we're doing here?
Yeah. So, and I wanted to highlight that the Deepin flywheel is super powerful. In less than 2 years now, Geonet has more base stations on our RTK network than any other network in the world, and that's an accomplishment that I'm incredibly proud of. And we have, I think, 2,000 or 3,000 more that are in the supply chain pipeline right now. So it's gonna skyrocket past any previously created RTK network, including those of billion-dollar companies that have been working on it for 20 years. So Deepin, there's no doubt that the Deepin model can disrupt and improve infrastructure throughout the world. When we looked at Helium, I think we saw that Helium did a lot of things really, really well in terms of creating low-cost hardware that could be used. You could install it correctly, get a good node hub, and get good range. We also saw some challenges with their tokenomic model in that not properly controlling locations could lead to too high a density. There was incentives to sometimes deploy stations in a way that was cheating the network or not really providing real coverage. So we thought about all of that, and whenever you come into something and you're not the first, you do get some benefits from learning from others. So we thought very carefully about our tokenomic design to make sure that it was creating a properly structured network that would provide the coverage and the quality that could be easily adopted by the Web 2 enterprise customers who are quite picky and quite demanding in terms of performance and capability. And so we designed a hex system. We looked at that and said, look, the first miner into a hex, he's really, if he does a good job or she does a good job and gets that station up, their rewards should be protected. And so we came up with issuing, after a period of time of high performance on the Geonet network, that miner, the first miner that achieves that high quality and reliability, can earn an NFT, which then avoids them sharing rewards with other miners that come into a hex later. So something like that, is a very good incentive to say, look, if you're in this network and you're doing it correctly, you're going to have long-term, protection for your token rewards. And that NFT now, and the next thing that we're doing is going to have additional governance rights. So we're saying, look, those operators who are operating, stations that are really core to the network and have established that coverage that's so critical to providing utility for the overall architecture, those nodes should have additional governance capability as well.
Yeah, it is very interesting just how quickly that flywheel can kick off. And I think do you have any metrics that you could share today about like how many miners are actually operationals or in the cities, how widely spread this miner network actually is?
Yeah, so I don't remember the number of cities off the top of my head, but it's, I think, 2,000 plus. We have 5,500, 5,600 stations that have been registered. Typically at any given time, about 80% of those are online providing high quality data. Obviously people do move and things, change. So there are always some stations that are offline, but that's true in the Web 2 networks as well. So let's not confuse that, when you look at a Web 2 infrastructure, they're devices that are going through upgrades. They're things that are moving around too. So it's not really, you create a perfectly reliable network through redundancy, not through having all, X number of nodes being perfectly on every single second of the day. You create reliability through redundancy, and Deepin is very good at that as well. So coverage-wise, most of North America has coverage, although we're still working on rural areas. There's a lot of rural and sort of tier 2 cities, and the same thing is true in Europe, although Europe is pretty close to getting to where you can pretty much get RTK on almost everywhere. There's some gaps in France that we've been working on. There's again gaps in smaller rural areas, but we have the big cities done, and that's a huge first step. And certainly our customers are telling us that the coverage is good, and so we just need to keep growing to get to a perfect network for the areas that are kind of mature revenue generating areas is kind of a 20,000-ish nodes. And so we're well on the way to do that. To get to a theoretically perfect coverage of all the land surfaces of the earth is 100,000 nodes. And that's our long-term goal.
So today in high density areas, about 1/4 of the way there, and globally about 1/5. I would say that's pretty impressive just within the last 2 years.
Yes. And certainly all the big cities, do have in Miami, LA, San Francisco, New York, any of these places you can flip on, get RTK fix. I was just in Dubai for Token 2049. I flipped on a GNSS receiver there and got RTK fix right away. So a lot of places. We worked really hard on India as a marketplace because it's obviously growing very quickly. And there isn't any good private network there today. So we have all the big cities there: Mumbai, Delhi, Pune, Hyderabad, Bangalore. So it's very exciting.
Yeah, it is rather impressive. Does Geonet also have to launch the satellites itself via like SpaceX, or are those satellites already in orbit? Can you partner with pre-existing people there? Yeah,
we don't have any plans to launch satellites. That would be really, really super cool to start creating some of our own PNT infrastructure into space, or to have the community create that. But I think that's a little ways off. We are currently recording data from all the major PNT satellite constellations. So PNT stands for position, navigation, and timing. And that is includes this GPS, GLONASS, Galileo, and Beidou, QZSS, IRNSS. These are smaller constellations of Japan and India, respectively. So we're getting all of those datums. And we are looking at starting to pull down data from the low Earth orbit satellites. This has been a very popular research topic, and we're starting to take steps to do that. That can help form alternative signals of opportunity, or they're called. So things like the control channels and the pilot channels of Starlink and Globalstar. Those are interesting in the future to look at, and we're starting to take some steps towards that. But we're not deploying our own infrastructure in space yet, but that could be a long-term goal.
The next step. Yeah, no, it's I've kind of been fascinated, just been what, again, kind of like the Tesla SpaceX community is doing there, and Elon and the SpaceX team just driving down the costs to launch things into space. It'll be interesting to see, and all the things that's going on with Starlink. So very exciting time in the entire category.
It is, and Starlink is super, super great. We do have stations that use Starlink for upload, and that's actually in ag, in particular in the market of agriculture, which has been a big early adopter of Geonet and continues to surprise me how quickly we're spreading throughout ag, throughout the world. And a lot of folks in ag are using Starlink for their home internet and for connectivity on their farm because the alternatives there really aren't any good alternatives. And so it's been when you talk to farmers, Starlink comes up all the time. And certainly there are stations, many stations now, Geonet connected through Starlink to upload the data back to the internet and providing connectivity as a whole at the ranch.
Yeah. No, it's remarkable, just what they've been able to do there, going from, I mean, probably less than a few megabytes per second to hundreds of megabytes and hopefully gigabytes here in the future. That is a dramatic difference for the vast majority of the world. So it's cool to watch. For people that perhaps want to get more involved with Geonet, participate either on the mining side or even reach out about the products that you guys offer, what is the best way to ultimately get involved and learn more about the community?
So geonet.com, our website, does have information covering both sides of the marketplace, both the mining and the RTK service. And that's a good place to jump in. Obviously, our Discord channel is a good place to jump in. There are also channels on Discord oriented towards the satellite mining side. I'd say the majority of the content on Discord's in that realm, but there's also some channels that are set up for the GNSS users, and those do have activity as well. But definitely just directly reach out to the foundation to get involved. If you're looking to directly use the service, there's a trial account sign up, and then the foundation doesn't really go to market directly. It goes to market through Web2 partners. So there's a variety of Web2 partners in each of the categories: agriculture, IoT, drones, farming, that resell the service. So there's depending on what the end user's application is. If he's a surveyor, he might buy the service through Rock Robotic. If he's in farming, he might buy it through Deep Sand. So we have established now more than a dozen Web2 partnerships, and that's growing quickly. There'll be more announcements here just in the coming weeks of people who are in the field of use, who are in these end application areas that have adopted Geonet, and then those subscriptions are typically sold to end users through those entities in a partnership agreement where they're making money selling the subscription, and then money is also flowing back to buy back and burn tokens, which is how we complete the cycle, right? So when people consume data from Geonet, it affects the buyback and burn of tokens, and that buyback occurs directly through TWAPs on the DEXs.
Okay, interesting. Definitely go check out Geonet's website. And I think you guys have just completed a raise, so congrats. Brought on a lot of awesome partners, including Pantera, Coin Fund, VanEck as well. Can you talk about kind of the future plans? What are you guys trying to do in the next, say, 6 to 12 months? And then like 5 years out, I know you mentioned you're at 5% of, or about 25% of the coverage you needed for the high traffic areas, about 5% worldwide. What's the end goal?
Well, they keep growing, and I think to try to do more that in the consumer space. Certainly, the consumer market is one that previously really couldn't use this technology. We were a big disruptor in value add in the enterprise space, where people have been doing high precision, mapping, survey, drones. These guys know RTK, and we provide huge value add in terms of cost reduction, coverage, flexibility of the business model. Those are all big value adds. But maybe the most exciting thing for the foundation is consumer applications, whether that be the robot in your yard or gaming or capabilities in your smartphone. This is really, I think, a big unlock that the foundation is focused on, and that the investment that the foundation has taken in is to do the development of SDKs and capabilities that are needed to unlock these consumer-facing applications.
Amazing. Well, I wish you guys the most success. I think I personally am very excited about just the product applications. I think more broadly, the crypto industry as a whole very much loves infrastructure, but the only way forward for the entire industry is kind of getting out of the infrastructure phase and focusing on products, focusing on users, and delivering value. And so to go from meters and accuracy to centimeters is extremely impressive. It's very cool to see you guys take advantage of the unique capabilities that really the tokenization of like the deep end flywheel allow you to spin up, get more coverage, provide better services. I think that's truly what the crypto industry will ultimately come about, because today we're sometimes swimming in circles.
Yeah, I think that utility is very important, and we've tried to create a system that's a sustainable, high utility network, solving real problems that are easy to adopt and grow. That's the key for us.
I love it. Is there anything, as we're kind of like wrapping up, that you really want users or the listeners of the podcast to take away, either about Geonet or what you guys are doing, or personally?
I think that the Geonet can be intimidating. You satellite navigation, high precision, RTK, all these acronyms. So I'd encourage people to dive in. Don't get scared by all the fancy words. It's really a next generation GPS. It's actually very simple what it does. And it is a great, unique opportunity, especially on the mining side. I think it's a very unique project from the mining side that's easy to adopt. And then any of those who are interested in doing mobile applications that use location and would like to see high precision location should also reach out. I think that's another area that it's a field of dreams, right? I mean, people are used to certain capabilities on their phone, but what you could do with centimeter accurate location on a phone has largely yet to be dreamed of. So that's another great thing that we're trying to brainstorm internally to the foundation, and can always get input from the community as well.
Hopefully we have a Instagram or Uber type moment where you have a centimeter level accuracy and some entrepreneur builds some really cool things. Exactly. Perfect. Well, we'll leave it there, Mike. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Really enjoyed it. And again, thank you for building very interesting products. It's something that I'm very much looking forward to in the entirety of the crypto space. So thank you again.
Super. Thank you, Logan, as well.